articles. I'm seeing lots of posts. I'm seeing all over that WWE is into a new era right now. Um, I'm not sure where that's coming from. I've been up to date on everything that's been happening on the product. I don't see anything new. Um, well, let me start off with the facts here. Right now, there is a whole bunch of new talent coming up from NXT. In some cases, they're coming up straight from the indies, like AJ Styles and the Bullet, the club members, right? And along with that, you have a lot of people are leaving. Just now, we had what's called Black Friday, where they just eliminated a bunch of the washed ups or the has-beens or the people that WWE doesn't have anything for. Um, Also, we have a lot of talent that's out right now on injury, like Randy Orton. I think John Cena is still out. We have guys who are going out the door, like Undertaker, Kane, Big Show. These guys seem to be on their way out the door. And so, with all that, they're saying this is a new era. Also, added on the fact that Roman Reigns is now the next top guy, and I guess finally, Cena has stepped down. I could be wrong. I honestly don't care because pretty much we both lose in both cases, except if you're a little kid, uh, or if you're the parent of a kid and you don't want to see your child's hero or your child's positive influence leave, then in those cases you're probably losing more with this new top guy. But yeah, let me talk about why WWE is not in a new era. First of all, you have the same people in command. You have the same guys in control. You seem to have the same writers, same bookers. Vince McMahon is still there. He has not stepped down. When he steps down, I could see people saying the argument that it's a new era. I won't go into too much detail on that. Uh, you can also say, well, we're in a new era because of Roman Reigns. Well, Roman Reigns might be a new guy, but he's being booked the same way Cena was. Look at how he can't lose clean. I have yet to see him lose clean. He might be able to be laid out in the ring from an attack, from an assault, from a handicap, but one-on-one he will never lose clean. I mean, he could, but when was the last time he lost clean? Do you remember? I don't. Uh, Look at how the fans want something and they don't get it. That's just like the old era, right? With the John Cena era or the reality era. Everybody kept pushing for CM Punk. They got the John Cena. They got The Rock. They didn't get CM Punk. CM Punk might have had the title, but he was not in the main events. He was kind of pushed aside for The Rock and Cena, their feud, right? And then whenever Cena had a feud, really, the WWE Championship does not come first. Only if he has the title does it come first. Even when you had the United States Championship Open Challenges, that was treated as a main event. That was booked like a main event. It had the most time on the card, minimum commercial breaks during his match. They had all the quick kickouts like at the end, like false finishes, I guess, false finishes. Yeah, you had a lot of that, and still today you see that. Even if Roman Reigns is not in the main event, he is going to be the main event. That is the same way the old era was with Cena. The title belt should be the main event. That's how it goes. The person who earns the championship should be booked with the main event slot. Everything should go around the title, and that's not how it is. Also, you look at the old era compared to now with the mid-card titles. The mid-card titles are like, basically, if you hold the mid-card title, you can lose anytime. It's not like it used to be where the mid-card title was like the next champion in the making. He's like the guy who's one day probably going to hold the championship. Today with the mid-card titles, it's a joke. It's been happening this way for years, except when Cena holds it. You look at, for example, some title reigns that come to my head is Wade Barrett. How many times he loses the title when he owns it? lose it meaning he doesn't lose it, like he loses it in non-title matches, or he looks like a bitch and he runs away and he retains. We're seeing lots of that today. Nothing has really changed. Look, I think the guy with the title now is The Miz. Does he ever win clean? Does he ever win without Maurice or without cheating or without some kind of fishy way of winning? I get that he's the heel, but the heels need to win too. They have to be a threat. Look at the Iron Sheik. He still won. Look at Roddy Piper. He won. He was the heel, but he would still win. He was still a threat. Imagine an Avengers movie where Ultron or Loki, imagine that they can't fight on their own. They have to be a pussy and use all these strange tactics. Nobody would really take it seriously. He wouldn't be a serious villain. That's why the Riddler is never taken seriously as Batman's greatest rival, because the Riddler uses tricks and schemes and he finds ways to win in ways that is not fair. He's not like Bane, where he's a serious threat to Batman. Bane would be a serious villain. Bizarro for Superman is a serious villain. You get it? And in WWE, there is no heel that is a serious threat to the main babyface. You've never had that with Cena. You will never have that with Roman Reigns. There will never be a serious contender. You might say Brock Lesnar, and I really think he's the exception because Brock Lesnar is a tweener. He's not really the main heel. He's a tweener. So you can't use him as that argument. Also, the WWE will never see Brock Lesnar as their main guy simply because he's not there every week. And they really need that. They need somebody who is going to be good at marketing, who's not going to scare away the little children. So Lesnar is not going to be that guy. Roman Reigns is that guy. And it's funny because Roman Reigns and Cena, in a way, they are huge heels. They are the main heels because everybody hates them. But WWE doesn't book them or see them that way, and that's the problem. If you booked Roman Reigns and Cena as your major heel, then he would definitely get lots of heel heat because the people, most of the people don't like him. All right. So Roman Reigns, same old thing as Cena, just a different face. He's just a different guy. He's a little bit more talented, but he can't talk. So it's like pros and cons with him and Cena. They're about equal. They balance each other out in a way. Also, guys like AJ Styles, guys like the Bullet Club members, guys like Sami Zayn, guys like Kevin Owens, guys like Seth Rollins, guys like Dean Ambrose, Colin Cassidy, Enzo Amore, Apollo Crews, soon to be Finn Balor, soon to be he just came up, all these guys from NXT. I can't think of them all right now. All these guys on NXT that are coming up to the main roster who are now supposed to be the new era. All they are is new people that John Cena or Roman Reigns are going to beat. And you're seeing it right now with AJ Styles. If this was this new era, why can't AJ win clean? Why can't any of these guys win clean over their guy, Cena and Roman Reigns? Why can't they ever lose clean to these new wrestlers, these new young talents? Because this is not a new era. This is just a new roster. That's all. It's a new roster. It's not a new era. If it was a new era, we would see different ways of booking. We would see things that they haven't done before. We would see, like when Kevin Owens beat Cena clean, a lot of people thought he was going to be a next big guy. And then he lost the second network special. And then he lost the next network special. And since then, he hasn't been anybody. He's been mid-carder. That's all this new era is. They might look good. They might do their thing against other mid-carders. They might be a rising star. And then they're going to face Roman or they're going to face Cena. And then they're going to lose. And then they're going to go right back down to the mid-card. And then the next guy's going to come up from NXT. And this pattern is going to continue. That's all NXT has become. It's training these guys to look good so that they can look like a serious threat to Roman or Cena. But they're going to lose. And then they're going to go right back down to the mid-card. And it's like a revolving door. It's just going to keep happening. Maybe some of them can shine up a little bit. and be a good mid carder like a Dean Ambrose. He's lost, but he still kind of shines in the mid card. You have the same thing with Seth Rollins, although he is still technically main event. He will be back to the mid card soon. You can guarantee it. Who else is going to be in the mid card soon? AJ Styles, he's going to be in the mid card soon. I like all these wrestlers I'm talking about. I like them very much. I'm not saying this because I think they're not good. This is just how WWE is. Next, we still have the network special thing going on. With these network specials, the wrestlers are paid according to, I think they're paid percentage according to network subscriptions. They're not paid per event. They're not like it used to be where you bring in pay-per-view buys and you pocket more. So if you do well on a pay-per-view, if you sell more pay-per-views, you get more money. It's not like that anymore. So what motivation do they have to wrestle a better match on a network special than Superstars or Main Event, for instance? There's no motivation for them to put on a better show. Like, for instance, back in the days of WCW, or hell, back in the days of WWF, you wrestle on a main event. This is your chance to show them. And you want to do good. You want to steal the show, right? Like Shawn Michaels, you want to be a showstopper. Now you don't have that, because even if you do really well, you're not going to get more money for it. You're not. Why do some dangerous suicide flip or some crazy move if you're going to get paid the same as you would if you just do a regular headlock? There's really no motivation, within reason, of course. You're not going to stink up the show and expect to get paid, the same as you would, because eventually you'll lose your spot. But for guys like Cena, for guys like Roman, all these guys, they have no motivation to do a good job because they're getting paid regardless. And that's a big problem. It's just like CM Punk said. That was one of his complaints. And I think that's a very valid complaint for the wrestlers. All right, next. Another problem is that wrestling does not matter in WWE. What matters is the sports entertainment, the talks, the promos, the commercialism, the marketing. These things are what matter. The wrestling itself takes a back seat to that. That's why you always see the matches really quick. That's why the commercial breaks run through the wrestling matches. That's why the wrestling matches are very played out in the same way. For example, Dean Ambrose in all of his matches, he always does that the turnbuckle bounce back thing, right? The thing that I forget his name. It's been so long since I've watched these guys. That's why they all do the same moves almost every match, because they have, I guess it's because people say it's because their video game deals, that they have to do certain special moves so the video game can capture them, and I don't know. But it seems like every match they do the same stuff, unless it's a match against Cena. Then maybe they'll pull out more moves from their playbook. But generally it's the same match, right? And then the match will end in a false finish, a surprise finish, where like somebody runs in from the back, or something happens, they're screwed over. It's never just a good match with a good finish anymore. There always has to be some kind of shenanigans, like Kane is going to come out, or Seth Rollins is going to come out and stomp somebody down. Like, this is what's been happening for the past year now. And I come back to watch the dirt sheets, and it's still happening. The same thing is still happening. Another problem is the women still are not taken seriously as they should be. I don't really need to go into this. If the women's division was taken seriously, there'd be some good storylines going on. There'd be some, when they come back from commercial break, maybe Michael Cole will talk about how this happened. There would be some drama. There really isn't any of that still. These women's storylines or dramas, they're just recycled from NXT for the most part. Or they're the same thing that we've been doing for months now. You're not going to see any backstage attacks from the women. You're not going to see, like in the old days of Attitude Era, somebody feeds somebody else's pet to them. You're not going to see anything crazy like that. You're not going to see any kind of one of the divas driving in with a truck and spraying people down with beer or milk. You're not going to see that stuff with the women. Until you get the women on the men's level, they're always going to be inferior. And I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying that's how people are going to see it. It's always going to be seen as inferior to the men until they start making it to be taken more seriously. It needs to be more dramatic. It can't be catty arguments. Nobody wants to see that. Well, some people want to see it for the women, but nobody wants to see that when you're a hardcore wrestling fan. That's why you really don't see really serious feuds in independent wrestling when it comes to women. They're usually involved with the men's storylines. You don't really see a serious feud with just women to woman. And that's a problem, of course. And it's not as big as a problem as the other ones I've listed, but where's this Divas Revolution that everybody's talking about? It hasn't really happened. I haven't seen a revolution. I've just seen kind of like, instead of giving them 1 minute matches or 2 minute matches, they give them 4 minute matches. You're never going to see like a 15, 20 minute match. You're never going to see the women in the main event on Raw. No. Another issue that I have is that they're acting like people who come up to the main roster are small times until they hit the main roster. Like nothing they did before WWE matters. And then when they hit WWE, they say, welcome to the big times. Just like remember with AJ Styles. When he enters the Royal Rumble, they say, oh, finally AJ Styles is here. He gets thrown out, welcome to the big times, kid, right? Kid. Meanwhile, AJ Styles is like a middle-aged man. He's actually older than Roman Reigns, but they call him kid, right? You got people kept calling Kevin Owens kid. Meanwhile, he's been wrestling as long as Cena, right? Let's see. When back to AJ Styles, when AJ Styles lost, or when he was having that feud with Jericho, each time he lost, they would act like if AJ loses, he doesn't belong here, and he never belonged here, and then he loses. So what message does that tell you? It tells you that he doesn't matter. He's in the small times. You can go back, even though this isn't this era, you can go back to the example of Sting. How Sting was in WCW all this time. He was in WCW. Hell, he was in WCW longer than anybody on the WWE roster was in WWE. He was in WCW. Well, I mean, he was out of WWE, still wrestling longer. I mean, he wasn't in WCW, that long. He was in TNA too, but he was wrestling longer than anybody on WWE programming was wrestling. That's my point. And yet, when he comes to WWE, it's still welcome to the big times. Even though in WCW, his events sometimes were a lot larger than WWE, with the exception of maybe WrestleMania. And he was the guy in WCW. Meanwhile, he's fighting guys like Triple H, like Seth Rollins, who are nowhere near the guy of their own company. And he still loses. So how does that make him look? Which goes to show, like, you don't matter until you come to WWE. They need to show some respect. Look at TNA. When guys go to TNA, they don't say, welcome to the big times, welcome to TNA. They still show them, like, look at this guy. He has a lot of accomplishments, and here he is, here, wrestling with us as equals. WWE doesn't do that. ROH does it. PWG does it. WCW used to do it. WCW said this is where the big boys play. But by saying that, by you coming here, you are now a big boy. By that logic, that's why when Diesel or Kevin Nash, whatever, or Scott Hall or Razor Ramon, whatever you want to call them, when they came, they said this is where the big boys play. I hear this is where the big boys play. That's why we're here. But with WCW, it's like now you're here. Prove that you deserve to be here because you're nothing to us. And that's the problem. And that's the big issue I have. Maybe the biggest issue I have with all these new talents coming here. Because they're all being fed to Roman Reigns because they're nothing in the eyes of WWE. They have to earn their stripes here in WWE. But WWE is all about entertainment. These guys are wrestlers. A lot of these talents that are coming up. Right? So that brings me on to my next point. This new era that they're talking about, where it's a totally new landscape. They now do they went back to the whole branding with SmackDown and Raw, right? The roster changes, but still the problem is that they're bringing up guys who are wrestlers, and they want them to try to become these entertainers. So basically, they're taking wrestlers, bringing them, changing them into entertainers, stripping them of everything that made them in the indies, and then they will feed them and make them lose to their WWE guys. What is the point in bringing in talented wrestlers? Why not just bring in really good talkers? Because you're not going to let them wrestle. So why not just bring in guys who are great at acting, guys who look like tough guys, guys who can be good talkers and stuff. Like, for example, in NXT, we have that guy, the Drifter, right? I don't remember his name, but the Drifter. He looks like a tough guy, right? And he can talk, he can sing. That's probably the type of guys they should be bringing in. I don't want to see them bring in my favorite wrestlers from New Japan, my favorite wrestlers from ROH, my favorite wrestlers from PWG. I don't want to see them bring in my favorite guys from TNA and then make fools out of them because maybe they can't talk as good as some of the WWE guys. And you see them losing to guys that everybody hates. It's the same thing. And finally, my last point. It's not a new era because still WWE does not care about the adult fans. The adult fans are what matter. Without the adult fans, they don't make money off the children. The children don't have jobs. The children are not paying for the tickets to these events. The children are not paying for the network. The children are not paying for the merchandise. The children are not paying for this stuff. The adults are putting money into this. If you keep alienating the adults, it's going to be like the kid wants the adult to go to the show, but the adult says, oh, I don't want to go to that corny stuff. Oh, I don't want you watching that stupidity, right? Eventually, it's going to come to that point. The reason that they're still making money off of the adults is because many of the adults, honestly, many of the adults were wrestling fans at some point in their life. They might not watch it, they might not like it now, but they're still pump money into it because they know what it's like to watch this show when they were younger. But for example, people my age now, the people who were wrestling fans as kids, but they know how they treat adults now. If I had a kid, I wouldn't take my kid to this stuff because I would say you need to watch something else because this show does not care about anybody except themselves. They just care about money. They don't want adults watching this show, it seems like. But then when they start doing badly, when their ratings start to tank, then they want the adult fans. Then they'll start to give you some hints. They'll start to tease you a little bit. They'll give you things that you think you want, and then they'll change it up. Just like this whole Bullet Club thing or the club. This is not for the children. This is for the adults. Little kids don't know what Bullet Club is. Little kids don't know what the club is. This is for the adult fans. They're trying to bring back the adult fans who always leave around WrestleMania season. But then when the adult fans finally come back and watch, they're going to take Roman Reigns, they're going to shove him down your throat, and because they know that wrestling fans, especially the adult ones, are very loyal. But it comes to a point where they stop watching. And that's the point that I'm at now. I still watch NXT because they haven't done this stuff that WWE does yet. But the reason why NXT is like, I don't get excited about NXT because it's all temporary. And I'm going to cover that in my next video, why I don't get excited about NXT. It's entertaining at the time, but I can't really get invested or say NXT is my favorite product.